I was doing a TV series called Cagney and Lacey, and John Kreese was just into the heavy, you know, and I went in there and I read for the, it's kind of a funny story, I guess I can tell it to you, how I got the part.
Please do, yeah.
Yeah, it was very unusual. I had gotten the script, and she said, you have all week to prepare. And this is a very good lesson for a lot of young actors. She says, you have all week to prepare. So I said, great. And that was on a Monday. All of a sudden, I get a call on a Tuesday morning, the very next day, that director John Avildsen wants to see you on the set right now at 12 o'clock. Well, I hadn't looked at the material at all. And the scene was in the dojo. Mercy is for the weak, here on the streets. An enemy, you know, someone confronts you, he is the enemy, an enemy deserves no mercy. Very angry. And as I did it there. And so my wife at the time said, how could they do this to me? And she says, just take all the venom and anger you feel right now of not being able to have any time to prepare and take it right to the audition. So I went to the audition, and John Avildsen was there, and I just berated him and said, you know, John, you're a real ass. I said, we wait for years to meet directors of your caliber. We fire our managers, we fire our agents to meet directors of your caliber, and you don't give me any time to prepare. You're a real asshole. And so are you, Caro Jones, the casting woman. And I went right into Mercy is for the Weak, here and on the street, and right into it. He loved it. He sent me to Jerry Weintraub, the producer, and Jerry's, you know, a hotshot guy at the time. He had produced Oh God and Diner, and a lot of good movies. And he was 4 days late for the interview. He was in Europe. So I figured I have nothing to lose. I have a TV series. I'll just go for it. He came in the room. I said, you know, Jerry, you're a real asshole. I've been waiting 4 days, and you're late for this meeting. You are a real asshole, and so are you, Caro Jones. Mercy is for the weak. Here. He stopped me halfway through, and he said, you're great. You're terrific. Sent me to the head of the studio, Guy McElwain. And thank God Guy because I didn't know Guy McElwain. But he wasn't around, so I just prepped, and I worked with Pat Morita, and I just did it to a camera. And I actually said all that stuff to the camera, and I used Guy's name. Guy, you're a real asshole. You're not here for the audition and blah, blah. Ultimately got the part, you know. But you can't always do that to insecure directors. John Avildsen was secure, Jerry Weintraub was secure. They could take that kind of stuff. Try to do it in TV, it's a little shaky. Well, it was really interesting because Sony wanted me to come, and they sent a car, and I took my children, and there was just thousands of people screaming Sensei, John Kreese, and all that, which was really charming. But, you know, I didn't know what to expect. And I bumped into Will Smith, and he was so happy I was there, and went into the movie. And if those of you who have seen it, in that scene where he's beating up his car, and it's a lovely, touching scene between Will's son and Jackie Chan, and they're very vulnerable together. And it took me out of the space of watching a remake and being critical as an actor of 3 movies I had done. Mm-hmm. I now was taken into a space where the acting was so good and vulnerable, and the people were so involved in the scene. It took me right into the scene, and I forgot that I was criticizing a remake that I thought was made too early. My initial reaction, you can see a movie, any one of these 3 movies on television daily. To make a remake of that, and my feeling was you can never improve upon perfection. And I told that to Will, and I think you can improve upon Casablanca, which is, I think, a perfect movie of all time. And I took a lot of radio interviews, and they were very up in arms about the construction. How dare they produce a movie like Karate Kid, because Karate Kid meant so much to so many different generations. And on the radio, Fox Sports Network, and a variety of shows, I would say that this is a really good movie. It takes place in China. There's not a romance in it, so we really can't compare the romance, but it pays homage to Karate Kid 1. It doesn't compete with it. And that's how I feel about it. I think it's a wonderful movie, and I got a call from Will Smith the next day, and he couldn't be more appreciative. You say, number one, that you did it for the money. And then you say, well, you know, you were doing a TV series, and no one ever expected it to be the classical epic that it was. We made that movie for $6.5 million. And it felt right. I wanted to do a film. I was doing Cagney and Lacey, and I was doing too much television, so I wanted to do a movie. So I've been punched and beaten in supermarkets by little kids. They come up. One kid in Malibu jabbed me and said, "You hurt Ralph." Little kid. I'll never forget. He hit me right in the kidney. You know, and a gorgeous mother, and she looked at me and said, and you know, there are reactions like that, but over the years, it's changed. And I was once in Portugal doing a film in the Algarve, the southern tip of Portugal, and there's probably one person for every, 200 miles. And a boy came up to me and screamed, and I was just walking on my day off in the fields, and he'd go in, "Karate Kid, Karate Kid." And I went up to him and he said, "You're in Karate Kid." And he ran back to his little farmhouse and he brought back a loose leaf. And he had 38 ticket stubs in there and had pictures of him as Ralph Macchio. And I brought him back to the set and I gave him a part of a 13-year-old mercenary,
Oh, that's great.
But there are reactions all over the world, whether I'm in Moscow or India or whatever. And the movie means so much to so many people. So it doesn't necessarily, they don't think of you as the ultimate badass anymore. They really enjoyed the fact that this character enjoyed being evil. Mm-hmm. And the backstory I created was he never lost as a martial artist in high school or college, and when John Kreese went to Vietnam, he wasn't allowed to win like a lot of our boys. So when he came back, he created the Cobra Kai, and under any circumstances were they ever to lose. And that's how that whole, I believe, the theory came through theologically. Nobody loses on the Cobra Kai under any circumstances, which is where Sweep the Leg and No Mercy comes from. Well, Cagney and Lacey was, we received a lot of Emmys and a lot of accolades, and it was a real quality show. Mm-hmm. 2 female cops, and I was like the TNA of the show, and I would find missing persons in public latrines, and they were off on these great homicide cases.
Right.
So I didn't get a lot to do, but I did a lot of comedy. And I liked it very much because you have a sense of security. You're working for 6-8 months. You're doing really good work. And that kind of show required really good work. I mean, you had to really know your stuff. But everything happens in 7 days, 8 days. You really don't get as much coverage. You literally must be more prepared. And you don't have the luxury of having 2 or 3 months. Like on a movie, you'll get the job and you usually have at least a month to prepare for your entire role. Mm-hmm. So you can live and develop the character, talk to people. If you're doing a film about mercenaries, you can talk to mercenaries. A gangster movie, you talk to some characters who were in the mob at one time. And it's a great luxury. And the great benefit of a film is that the event of developing and rehearsal is often as exciting as the event of being in front of the camera and acting. And in a TV show, you don't get that time. In that TV show, when I did my own show, A Hard Time on Planet Earth, after Cagney and Lacey, I was shooting one episode, doing pickup shots for the previous episode, mm-hmm. and meeting the director for the future episode, all in one day. And that happens all the time when you're, one of 2 stars on a show or just by yourself. So it's a little more creative. It's a little more satisfying. Usually the directors